This is CyberNet once again reporting from the besieged settlement of Albeit in northern Iraq. My cameraman and I have relocated to a building that faces the southern battle line. We have taken this potentially hazardous course of action so that you might bear witness to what is transpiring on the near horizon. An Iranian tank force is now on site and has commenced attacking the village. The situation here is intense and becoming more dire with each passing moment. Since 1080G is the only roadway in the area stable enough to support heavy vehicle traffic, Albeit and the Marines occupying it represent a roadblock to Iranian progress towards Kirkuk. Macro Lens has exited the building and is braving the incoming tank fire in an attempt to provide you with a look at conditions on the ground. The lightly equipped Marines have taken up a defensive posture of concealment, but I'm afraid the odds are against them. It may only be a matter of time.
Bound by honor and duty in harrowing circumstances beyond their control, the Scout Marines of Company A continue to pursue a mission directive that has been redefined from reconnaissance to that of the static defense of an isolated choke point along the obscure 1080 corridor. In recent moments, a company of Iranian T-62 battle tanks has appeared on the battlefield and is now maneuvering into assault positions on the southern flank of the settlement. Having already encountered many dangers this night, the Americans now face an even greater challenge. For these leathernecks, there can be no better time than the present to summon the intrinsic valor and virtue of esprit de corps. The time is 03:14 hours. Being that the Marines holding Albeit constitute only light infantry, they are ill-equipped to do battle with heavy armor. Other than the two mobile tow missile platforms, Fox 1 and 2, their only real anti-tank defense comes in the form of disposable, man-portable munitions. As such, Alpha, Bravo, and Delta teams have all been dispatched to retrieve LA rocket launchers from the stowage of their LAVs, prior to joining Charlie team in the South Pitch Trench outside the village walls. Meanwhile, atop the town hall, Snake chambers another cartridge into his bolt-action sniper rifle and begins to track the turned-out commander of a T-62 that is racing across the plain in the far distance. A difficult shot at best, his round fails to find its mark. Undaunted, he and his spotter scan the field for other unsuspecting prey. Seconds later, they find it. Nestled within the wadi along the ridgeline, 1st Platoon has come to a halt behind the stationary BMP. The lead tank within view, Snake targets the semi-exposed commander for elimination. His projectile, however, is deflected by the forward-facing hatch cover, thereby sparing the enemy tanker. Further forward the dry wash, on either side of the earthen bridge, both the Wadi Scouts and a pair of tech insurgents have peaked the north crest of the depression. As yet undetected, both elements resume their surreptitious crawl with the goal of reaching the village's south wall for purposes of reconnaissance and potential ambush. Assuming the exterior trench to be unoccupied, they gamble their lives on the notion that the pending tank attack is consuming the Marine defenders' attentions and has therefore spooked them into withdrawing from the outskirts. Across the battlefield to the northeast, the equally stealthy Sand Scouts have deployed into a skirmish line formation and are on the verge of reaching the crown of that dune nearest the village. Though hindered by darkness and still at considerable range from their prime objective, they distinguish the sound of hectic motorized activity occurring outside the north perimeter. The lightly armored U.S. vehicles are jockeying for position along the exterior of the wall, desperately seeking any available cover. Likewise, both the C2 and Fox 2 recognize their susceptibility to attack and initiate a full withdrawal to the relative safety of the village periphery. Inside Albeit itself, Coyotes 1 and 2 have relocated to the village junction, where they take up positions behind the central building complex and discharge 2 of the scout teams tasked with securing a number of shoulder-mounted anti-tank weapons. Amongst the overall frenzy, one vehicle maneuvers to the east limits of the north wall for reasons of a more offensive nature. Fox 1 has no intention of being bashful. Out on the open plain, 3rd Platoon of the T-62-75 Company has reached the predetermined extent of its flanking movement and begins to pivot in the direction of the village. Even though these 3 tanks must traverse a darkened landscape fraught with potential perils in order to assail the settlement, they have the benefit of a tanker's best friend. On their heels are the plane scouts, who will serve as infantry support. Whilst awaiting full deployment, the company HQ and tanks of 2nd Platoon have maintained a safe distance from the village by pausing behind the abandoned BMPs located along the dirt road. However, the time has come for them to make their move. The 3 subordinate tanks begin a probe towards the bend in the road. At some point in virtually every battle scenario, there comes a moment when the violence of combat erupts with such fury or otherwise becomes so chaotic that it tests the will of every combatant on the field of conflict. This condition is simply known as the Mad Minute. For these rival warriors, that time has just arrived. Detecting the approach of the tanks of 2nd Platoon from over the south rise, Fox 1 singles out a target for attack and successfully acquires the metal beast into its onboard tracking system. An instant later, the first of the Marines' limited supply of TOW missiles is on its way to its intended victim. Engulfed in a brilliant flash of light, the centermost T-62 is promptly deleted from combat. From their ridgetop bastion, the Iranian command team observes the introduction of this lethal weapon into the fray, which brusquely strips them of their superfluous confidence.
في اللحظات التي سبقت الضربة الأمريكية على الصاروخ الأول وكان همنا الوحيد.
In the moments leading up to the Americans' first missile strike, our only real concern was the prospect of a renewed attack from the skies above. At the time, we had no adequate defense against such a threat. However, it appeared to be irrelevant. The tanks of the southern prong were all in position to commence the assault on Albeit. The commandant had just given the order for them to advance, when a warhead streaked across the desert floor and struck one of the T-62s traveling up the dirt road. Needless to say, the impact devastated a tank of that vintage. In an instant, our plan to simply overwhelm the village with brute force was completely dashed. You see, the tiny enemy blocking force possessed a slingshot of fearsome potential.
Having formed into a V configuration in order to beset the village from the southwest, the 3rd Tank Platoon immediately becomes cognizant of this new imposing threat to their survivability. Discouraged and disgruntled, they come to an abrupt halt, well short of their intended waypoint on the open plain just short of the wadi. By sheer coincidence, though, a gentle roll in the terrain affords them a defilade firing position. They are, however, still too far afield for positive target identification and acquisition. As if suspending time itself, Fox 1 continues its preemptive attack by assailing the second of the 3 T-62s straddling the bend in the road east of reference point EE. Before the tank can recognize and react to the dismissal of its platoon mate, it too becomes a casualty of battle prior to firing even a single shot in anger. For Captain Ricks, the unavoidable scenario of David versus Goliath is now in motion.
With the onset of Fox 1's attack, I authorized the troops within the village to initiate defensive fire on anything that moved, even if that meant sacrificing our concealment. Knowing full well that their night vision capability was typically very poor at longer distances, the whole idea was to attempt to keep the enemy well beyond arm's reach by using comprehensive suppression. Honestly, I was unprepared for the ferocity of the ensuing exchange. It was quite violent, to say the least. Initially, it seemed as though every Marine under my command was engaging one target or another. Not only did the M19 sections and the transport crews detect and summarily dispatch no less than 4 separate groups of interlopers that were encroaching upon the village, one section also went so far as to attack the tanks on our exposed west flank. This actually succeeded in forcing their crews to button up. Even 2 of the Coyotes briefly emerged from cover to punish the lone surviving T-62 from the group that had advanced up the dirt road near Tripoli. By this time, however, the surprise of our picket defense was over. The enemy tanks began to respond, in kind.
Anguished by the sudden loss of 2 of their companion tanks and scornful for having their assault on Al-Bazir abbreviated while still beyond minimal targeting range, those T-62 crews with line of sight to the village opt to commence firing high explosives at the settlement's standing structures. While the only survivor of 2nd Platoon reels from the bend in the dirt road, the company HQ provides cover fire by hammering the south wall. The explosive power of the 115mm shells easily reduces the stone partition to rubble, thereby exposing portions of the village interior to the attacker. By far, the most immediate and aggressive threat to the village, however, comes from the open plain. The 3 tanks of 3rd Platoon elect to attack the multi-story buildings simply because their shapes are discernible above the barrier, and also because taller dwellings are likely to house enemy combatants. For maximum effect and shock value, they engage in coordinated volleys of simultaneous fire. Comprehending that they are beneath the visual perspective of any ground-level AT platform, 1st Platoon and the aggressor BMP endeavor to capitalize on the stifling barrage created by their compatriots. The armored vehicles once again become mobile in an attempt to snake their way further forward the Wadi Trough. However, their venture is interrupted by the return of a transient airborne menace. Left with only a short supply of armor-piercing rounds for its Gatling gun, Mozart 1 descends from the sky behind the trench-bound column and opens fire. Since such an attack would have little or no effect on the armor of a T-62, its only real target is the moderately sheathed BMP. Expending the last of its munitions, the Cobra promptly departs the AO, leaving an immobilized Iranian IFV in its wake. About this time, activity within Al-Bazir is ramped up in an attempt to prepare for a looming combined arms assault from the south. While the 2 men of Delta Team emerge from Coyote 4 with their own AT rockets in hand, Alpha and Bravo teams are already in the process of taking up defensive positions alongside Charlie Team in the pitch trench. However, the tank barrage on the south wall makes their transition outside the confines of the village all the more precarious. Conversely, the C2 ultimately finds its way to a less dangerous niche askew the opposing exterior to the north, while Fox 1 deliberately relocates to slightly higher ground. Bypassing the inert BMP, 1st Tank Platoon disperses into a 3-point pattern along the Wadi Bend, running parallel to the way station, with the point tank transitioning almost as far as the earthen bridge itself. From this orientation, the T-62s can eventually emerge from the rocky depression with a broad-based field of fire at point-blank range to the Marine defenses. But for now, such an action would be too risky. At this point, the southern sector of the village is under direct bombardment from multiple heavy-caliber cannons. Though the method of attack is indiscriminate, its cumulative effect is already evident. The recon Marines simply cannot match the firepower being leveled at them. Ricks and crew are in need of a defining moment, and they get it, courtesy of Fox 1. Having risked its own demise by reversing to an exposed elevation providing vision beyond the southern rise, the crew detects the lone T-62 of 2nd Platoon abandoning the dirt road approach to the village for that of the open plain. On its way to join 3rd Platoon, the tank's profile presents a juicy target for a wire-guided missile. Seconds later, the tank is struck broadside. Stopped dead in its tracks, it is reduced to a burning wreck. Distracted by the swift demise of an entire platoon, yet feeling secure behind the hull of a derelict BMP, the unwitting Company HQ is oblivious to the fact that they too are within the crosshairs. With typical Marine efficiency, the command tank is lit up like a Roman candle, its crew promptly bailing out of their disabled hulk. Out of communication, the 2 surviving tank platoons must now fend for themselves.
Enemy troops.
Remote link KX4. Do you read? Come in, KX4. This is ComSat-2, head end control. Repeat. This is ComSat-2. Are you there? Psi, do you copy? Please respond. Mac, are you in receipt of this audio transmission? Please reply. What's that? It looks like Psi has been injured. Possibly the cameraman as well. KX4. What is your status? Mac.
Like a K6 grade tornado or an omnipotent black hole in space, the overwhelming nature of Combat Unleashed has a tendency to consume everything in its path. Not even an embedded news crew is immune to the appetite of war. Akin the power of nature, a battle's true swell can only be found in the eye of the storm.
You're watching Tales of Virtual Combat on his Story Internet channel.